You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey there, people-centric leaders. This is Stephanie Anderson, and I've got a bone to pick with you today. Really, I do, and I just need you to know about it and how bad it is. And no one else is talking about it. Nobody else even cares. You and I are the only ones who even notice this. So buckle up because today we are going to complain. And yeah, Diana. Diana is with me. She's ready.
You.
Let's
How much we kind of complain about. I don't want to solve any problems. I just want to be mad for a while. I'm into this. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. And then also with us, who has positivity in their top 5 Gallup strengths, Philip Herzog. Are you ready to complain,
I am
Philip?
wearing black today, which doesn't always happen. And it's just because I am so ready to complain. Everything about me is going to say complaint, grievance, grief. There is no positivity here. I am just ready to burn things down and blame other people for it.
Wow. We finally brought Philip to the dark side.
I feel like
case
we
you were
broke
wondering.
Philip. I don't know if I like this or not. I'm sorry, Philip. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. Just don't worry. I was walking in the woods. The trees were dying. The flowers were dying behind me. It's a new superpower, complaining, toxicity. I'm loving it. Let me tell you, I feel great.
I think it was the I feel great that sold it at the end of like you were almost there, and then it was like, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. I love complaining. But well, really, we are not going to necessarily complain today, but we are maybe going to complain about the complainers, and talk about complaining because something that we hear often as business consultants, shocker, is complaints. And an interesting one has emerged recently that I thought we could talk about on the podcast that would be interesting is what do I do when I'm the person that people come to complain to and I'm not the boss, quote unquote. I am not the leader. So I don't necessarily have the ability to do anything with their complaints, but people are coming to complain to me. What do I do? And we've heard this recently, or I even heard one of our clients talking about this recently, that they're like, hey, yeah, we're seeing managers go to complain with hourly employees, or we'll do a session with somebody and they're like, yeah, like my coworkers just keep complaining to me about everything and we're at the same level. And so I can't do anything about it. So what do you do with a complaint? What do you do with a problem? So first, just for all of us, I think this happens all the time, right? And it happens all the time. And so I thought this could be just a really interesting, just open conversation in full transparency. We haven't even prepped for this one too much because I think it's better if it just comes out a little raw. So first question, is it okay to complain at work or does everybody just need to shut up? This is my complaining question.
I mean, here's my petty Betty. Please bring your tea to me. I want all the tea. I want to know. That's inappropriate. Never mind. Should you complain at work? I think the answer is yes. Everyone needs to have that release, have that vent. Everyone has bad days. Yes, I think complaints at work are okay. I just think you have to place them appropriately. So my rule is you can complain to people on the same level or up. You cannot complain down in a hierarchy. So I, as the COO, cannot generally just go to you guys and complain. So that would be weird if I was just like, you know what, guys, Don's being a real bee, I'm all over it. I'm done. That would be a weird conversation to have with you guys. So that's my rule. I don't do that. It's also weird to go to Dawn and be like, you know what, Don's being a real bee, but I do it sometimes. So there you go. So yes, I think you have to complain at work. I think it is healthy. I think it is necessary. I think it is normal. I just think there are good ways to do it and bad ways to do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I like your rule, Diana, and I tend to agree with that too. And I think that is like a leadership adage, probably many of us have heard, is like, don't complain down, complain up or to the side. But the reality is, like, we do need to complain sometimes, and we all need to vent from time to time. And so I think it's a good distinction even for this conversation. Like, can we talk about the difference between venting and complaining? Like, how do I know when it's okay to like let off some steam and vent and say I'm really frustrated? And how is that different from complaining?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I have like a definition. I think that I recognize it in myself when I'm like, listen, I don't want solutions. I'm just a little frustrated and I need to get it out. Um, and I also, when I need to vent, I will go to Dawn and just be like, can I just vent for a minute? Like, it just, and I'll state that's what I'm doing. Because when I'm just venting, I don't need Dawn to be like, oh, well, we should do this. Let's solve this problem. Let's solve that. No, I just need to like get it out for a second. So I don't know if I have a definition. I think I just have a feeling. What do you think, Philip? What do you got?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's so powerful about this conversation too is just that, like, people need to, whether we want it to happen or not, it will happen, and it needs to at times. If there's a real frustration, the team should know, or the right person should know. But I also like, how you preface your venting. I don't know how many of you have ever tried to stop a pressure cooker from venting or an Instant Pot once it starts to release that steam. If you try to shut it off, that's dangerous, right? So I love Diana's point of asking beforehand, are you just needing to say some things? Do you want any help with this? What can I do to help this or direct it somewhere else? And while I think sometimes they probably are mired together. I'm complaining and frustrated. I'm complaining about the frustration and the people that caused it or the client that caused it. But one of the things that maybe helps, and you both spoke to this, is the why. If you're one people come to, are you welcoming the complaints or the frustration, whether it's at your peer level, your leader level, or the people below you? Because it feels like it gives you a sense of power, or the inner story is the way that you know what really is going on around here, from a lot of negative frustration. And I think there's teams we come into where if a toxic culture exists, it's because the bulk of the meaningful conversation comes about in the complaints rather than the direction we're going or what we need to do. And I would say if your main mode of effective or deep communication is on the negative side, it's really inefficient because you're doing it in small groups of twos and threes. It's not really getting around to what it needs to be, needs to be done. After the meeting, if you're like, oh, that's a stupid solution and this is why, but you didn't share that in a meeting, or you didn't actually go to the person's making those decisions, so some of this I would say, when is it inappropriate? When it's becoming your main channel of solving problems or just talking about them, rather than Diana's point of where can you go if a frustration is real, to make an actual difference or a change.
Yeah. Ooh, you said something, Philip, that I had a reaction to in my head where you're like, if you're the person that everybody comes to and they're all bringing you complaints and you just now that's how you know things. My internal thought, and I'm sure someone else had this because people centric is not this way, but I've worked somewhere before that had more of a gossipy culture. I like, if I turn off that tap, then how will I know things, Philip? Like, if complaining or gossiping has become the primary mode of sharing information, and I say, okay, you know what? Like, I don't want to be the person that people come to anymore. This stresses me out, or I'm hearing things I didn't want to hear, or I don't need to know, or it's sucking up all of my time. Or maybe I just decide, you know what? I'm not going to participate in like gossipy style complaining anymore, and I just close my door to that, then how will I know things? Like, and I think that is a challenge. And we worked with a lot of people. And again, like, I've worked in a space like that before where it was like, it felt really icky that people were coming to me with these stories or complaints about other people, or were coming to vent to me. But I realized, like, when I was like, hey, like, I don't think we should be talking about that, that then they just stopped coming to me and all of a sudden I didn't know stuff anymore. And so, it is interesting. And I agree with you, Philip, that I think it points to like some toxicity in the culture, but also a sincere gap in communication, cadences and effectiveness. Because if there's not a place to talk about things otherwise, I do feel like that's how stories happen in the workplace, and even positive ones. Like these don't all have to be like, oh my gosh, this person's the worst, but even just sharing like, hey, did you hear this? And did you see this document? Or did you get this information that people are talking about? It's usually we see those are also teams that they don't have good communication in place. They don't have meetings to talk about stuff. They aren't doing one-on-ones or check-ins with the team. They probably have some unclear processes, and so information's just getting passed word of mouth instead of saying like, oh, this information has a home and a place where it goes where other people could access it. So I think that is it is one that's common, and that's why sometimes people, especially like I was hesitant to like turn off the gossip faucet because we didn't have other good spaces to like flag that for your leaders. If you're the person that people keep coming to, just go to your leader and you don't have to tell them everything you've heard, but to say, hey, I think we need to like have a meeting. And I know nobody wants to be the person that suggests another meeting necessarily, but I think it can be really helpful. Like, I'm hearing a lot of stories about why we're doing this or how this happened or what's going to happen next. Or I'm hearing people being frustrated about how this is happening. Maybe we need to have a couple meetings to talk about that and like get everybody on the same page. Or maybe we need to start like a weekly team huddle where we just say, yeah, this is the priority. This is what's happening this week. Here's who's going to be out. Here's who's going to be in. These are the different things that are happening. Here's all the moving pieces and parts.
Yeah, and you said things that spurred another thought in me, was that if you're the person that people are coming to, and I think that I've been that person before. Stephanie, you just kind of alluded to the fact that maybe you were in a previous
Yeah, I've
place.
been that person before.
So I'm kind of curious, like what made us the people that people went to, or in our clients, and we see that person, what's making that person that person? Why do people go to that person to talk about things? What is it?
Oh no. Yeah. Well, I'm going to just be really honest. I think when I look at my past self and in that past job, and I was that person that people were coming to complain to. Philip, you mentioned this earlier. Nobody likes to use the word power because it feels really icky, but it did give me more power and influence in the organization. I did get to hear about things that I otherwise did not get to hear about that I could use to my strategic advantage. And no, I was not a supervillain, right? Like I wasn't going around
Are
doing
you
stuff.
sure?
Well, I don't know. But I did like it. I would say like I would use it strategically. Like, oh, if I heard that so and so is thinking about doing that, well, then I'm going to change my plan over here to try to accommodate for that, adjust if that could happen. Like, I felt like I used it more as like some like preemptive planning and trying to avoid having to redo work. If so and so told me that they heard somebody say in the hallway that they're thinking about changing this, well, then I'm not going to put in all of this work over here. And actually, I might even prepare like another version of that in case they show up in my office one day and say, hey, we're ditching that or changing it. So I mean, it gave me influence on the team. I mean, I think the other thing is it really fed my ego, if I'm going to be honest, and it really stoked my ego because it made me feel important. I got to be the person that would give people answers. I am a recovering know-it-all. And so I'm like, yeah, I would just like tell people then like, oh, well, here's what you should do and go do that and go try this. And it really made me feel good. Now, if I could reflect back, honestly, I was not always giving people the best advice. I think sometimes I gave people really good advice. Other times I didn't because I didn't understand. And I wasn't in certain leadership positions to maybe understand why things were happening. I will say, like, there was a point in that job where I did become toxic, that I would like be the leader of the meeting after the meeting because everybody wanted to come and talk to me about it and what just happened and what are we actually going to do here. So I think if I'm really honest, a part of it was just like it made me feel important. It made me feel special. It made me feel smart, to kind of to do that and be that person. And I couldn't see where maybe it was leading to me becoming a little toxic or other people on the team becoming a little toxic, if I'm going to be super, super honest.
I love that. I was gonna be honest and say that people came to me for a couple of reasons, but I think the main one was that I was the toxic employee. And by toxic, I just mean I was very misaligned with the leadership. The leadership wanted to go one way, and I and several members of the team really wanted to go another way. And I was the office manager, so I was allowed to be in on all of the executive meetings, and I like took all the notes and I scheduled all the stuff, and I had the ear of the executives. And so I was also in this position of like, you're not really an executive, but you get to be a part of all of that. So it was easy to come talk to me because I was not intimidating as an executive, right? I was on the same level as a lot of people. And since I also very much wanted to go this other direction, and the team members knew that because I was not quiet about it, they would come to me and be like, okay, if you want to go this direction, here's the things we're doing. Here's what you should tell the leaders. Here's what you should say in the next meeting. You know, here's what's going on for real, for real. And so it did give me this like ego trip, probably, of like, I'm going to change this company. I'm going to make it better. Because in my mind, I was making it better, even though I was definitely not, because the leadership did not want to go the direction that I wanted to go. So I was feeding this like narrative that I had built of, I'm rallying the troops. I'm doing something good. I'm going to make it better. Together, we're going to come out on the other side of this a better company and happier and all of these things, right? But the truth is that I was incredibly toxic and should have never been doing that. But it was like a toxicity ego trip thing that was happening. And probably some like I had the influence of some others too. So it was all of those things together made it very easy for people to come to me.
Mhm. That's so powerful. I also, when you mentioned under the influence, I thought, that's a phrase we use when someone's behind the wheel drunk driving. But I think it's similar when you think of it. And you could do positive under the influence or negative under the influence. You're like, wow, were we having all of these shadow cadences, like the non-official cadences when we were under the influence of toxicity or ego trips or whatever that might be. And I too have been a great user and receiver of these same meetings. And I think it's because it's a great source of information. I always love old Westerns when someone puts their ear to the ground. I think that's what these meetings are. You're like, I can hear things in other departments and other teams. And we all give examples of how I would like to imagine, at least for me, early on, it's like, man, I am just great at being a team member. People care, people feel safe. That's awesome. But when you suddenly learn the names of people's dogs, then they start to come to you and talk about their kids, their dogs, and their frustrations about Linda and that team, right? Or like freaking David can't get his stuff together and he's a boss that is incompetent. Why am I here? And you're like, oh, have you tried? Have you tried? And then eventually, to your all's point, it does start to shape you. I think when you open the door to that kind of influence, you will then be influenced back. It is a two-way street. And I think that goes the way of engagement also. And so how you respond, or I'm curious for you guys, when you realized you were deep in this shadow cadence, I'm now more toxic than I was before. What do you do when you're in that position?
Woof, Philip.
Yeah.
What a question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, there's just to give maybe some quick answers. I think you do have to decide, like, and Diana and I have some similar stories there of like we both decided to leave our jobs because we realized we had gotten toxic, which again means we were misaligned with where leadership was trying to take the organization. Now, were we right? Yeah, I think we might have been in some things. And, looking back now, I'm like, oh, I think now I can see what happened. And I think there were some things I was right about. But at the end of the day, I was misaligned. So, like, you might need to just acknowledge that. And either you have to decide, do you want to become realigned with the team, which means you might need to have some heart-to-heart conversations. You might need to cut off the stream of people coming to you and just saying, like, hey, guys, like, I'm gonna just recognize and acknowledge, like, I can't do anything with this information. And actually, like, it's kind of hurting me that it keeps coming here because I'm recognizing I'm not managing that well. I don't know what to do with it. I'm getting involved in things I shouldn't be getting involved in. And so, like, redirecting those people to where they need to go. Or maybe you really don't see yourself becoming realigned with the organization. And that's where maybe you need to exit. Maybe you need to, find another job or do something else with your time and space. But I think, for a lot of people who I hear this from, they're not toxic yet, right? Like when we typically hear it, but they're starting to feel like, oh, this doesn't feel good or right. Or I'm starting to see maybe where it could slip into a negative place. So yeah, like what do you do and how do you manage that? Like maybe just some practical thoughts from us.
Yeah, I love the question of like, what do you do with it? You've recognized it, you know that it's happening. You kind For me, I kind of was like, oh, I see that I've been inviting this, right? There was a little introspection there. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to turn this around. This was before I decided to leave. I was like, I'm going to turn this around. And instead of leaning into them and agreeing and being like, yeah, I'm going to try to coach them to have the conversation with the appropriate party. That was my first trick. Like, I'm going to coach this person. If you're complaining about Linda, I'm going to coach you to go talk to Linda. If you're complaining about a process, I'm going to coach you to change the process, right? And so I started there. And then I sort of felt it slip a little bit because it's not as fun. Honestly, it's not as fun to be the cheerleader and the like do gooder and the like go do the thing, right? It's more fun to lean in and be like, oh yeah, I hate that too. Um, and so then I started to try to like, okay, I'll bleed some empathy into it and I'll agree and then I'll coach. And it just that after I tried like different tactics, I realized like, oh, I just don't really like any of these directions, right? I'm feeding I'm feeding the revolt that will never happen is what it felt like. And so I realized then like I'm trying to change something that doesn't want to be changed. And I think you have to realize that in yourself of like are these problems that are actually problems that are gonna get changed, that are necessary to change, that are helpful to change, or are these just like things that you just want and you're trying to lead a revolt.
Mm.
So I realized I was trying to lead a revolt and I stopped. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to shut it all off. I'm not going to hear any of it. I'm not going to coach any of it. And so I redirected people back to a different topic. I'd be like, oh yeah, that really sucks. How was your weekend? Right. And I completely changed the subject. And so then it kind of turned off the spigot and people were like, oh, Diana's like not interested anymore. She's given up. And I had given up, but in a different way, in a good way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you have to sort of decide some tactics. Am I going to redirect? Am I going to coach? Am I going to change the subject entirely? But in any case, you have to determine what your motives are. And if your motives are misaligned or ill-intended, you need to stop doing it completely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I agree with everything you said. And I think you highlighted something too about like kind of what kind of complaints are coming to you and are they things that really can be changed or would make a significant impact on the team. And I wanted to flag here is like sometimes there are complaints that you do need to take up. Like sometimes someone might bring something to you that you might decide, hey, actually, like, ooh, this would have a significant impact on the team, or this is a significant like error or mistake, or some line has been crossed somewhere. And so it's also acknowledging too, like what type of complaints are being brought to you. And I appreciate how you framed that, Diana, of like, yeah, if it's just kind of like the gossipy complaints that are maybe just feeding your ego, like probably shut those off. But if people are bringing real problems to you, I do think coaching them to go bring the solution, like, or sorry, bring the problem themselves is great to do. And to also remind people they don't have to have the solution when they highlight a problem. I think that's one piece of advice that a lot of people have been given is when you bring a problem to your boss, you have to bring a solution. I'm going to really disagree with that. I think sometimes you can just bring a problem to your boss or a leader, and you may not be able to form the solution because of your role and where you sit in the company, and they might be able to do that for you. So sometimes it's just coaching people to say, like, hey, I think you should bring that up to Diana. Like, I really think you should go talk to Diana about that. Or if you sense that they're very uncomfortable, to say, like, hey, like, would you be okay if I took that to Diana? And I'm just using Diana as our example here, as a leader. Like, would you be okay if I elevated that and took that? Because I actually think that if Diana knew that was broken or that was happening, that there might be some things that she might know to do as our COO that you and I don't see. Or it could be something like, yeah, that really kind of crossed a line. And I know Diana would want to know about that, and that she can address it from her position in a way that we can't. So I think sometimes too, it's not just the coaching of like, what advice could you give them? But sometimes the advice might be, hey, actually, this does need to go somewhere besides us. And it's not because somebody did something horrible, right? Like, obviously, I think everybody understands the clear line here. Like the unethical, the legal, like if someone's stealing from the company, yeah, elevate that. Don't sit on that complaint. But sometimes the stuff where it's like, yeah, this is actually a problem. And maybe because of Diana's position in the organization, she doesn't see this problem yet. But because we're day to day next to it, we see it. And that might need to get elevated. And we don't always have to have a solution to take it to Diana to be like, Diana, like this broke. And Diana might be able to help us fix it, or she might not be able to fix it. And we might have to call somebody to help fix it.
I love that example. And I was thinking if you're self-inspecting, I think a good way to measure this is if some of your greatest purpose or joy from your role comes from complaining with others or creating this rebellion. I love the way Diana laid it out of maybe you just haven't communicated the needs or the frustrations to the right folks to look at solutions. Or if you have and you feel like that happens and there's consistently a wall there saying, we don't really care or we can't fix that and it's really important to you, well, then instead of staying with something you're misaligned with, you can at least jump into a place where you are more aligned and can use your energy and purpose for something greater.
Yeah, I love that. I think what we're saying is there's a healthy way to complain and an unhealthy way to complain. And complaining is totally normal and you have every right to do that. But there's probably a really good way to do that and a really bad way to do that. So
Yeah, and that there's a healthy way to receive a complaint and an unhealthy way to receive a complaint. And you may not be helping the team as much as you think by just like fielding all of the complaints and giving advice right back. Like you may not always be as helpful as you feel you are in that moment. So knowing like, yeah, what complaints do I need to redirect? What do I just need to shut off? Because maybe it is just like gossipy and not helping the team, and impacting how I show up at work, and what complaints maybe need to be elevated. And we need to like raise the flag and ask for some help here.
I love that. What other final thoughts do we have on complaints in the workplace? Complainers and complaints.
My final thought, I was thinking so much of one who receives complaints. Maybe you consider yourself the importer exporter of all the complaints, all the drama at your team, at your company. And that can feel great. But Diana, you brought up the really simple thing of, does the other person know? And so much of what we do, we did an unofficial poll among our team recently talking about this, or whether it's an executive to a frontline manager of complaints that they might share with us. And when we say, does the other person know? the response is often, yeah, they know. I mean, we talked about it. I mean, we mention it. I mean, and they kind of almost backwalk it a little bit and then say, they're kind of aware. I don't know if I was the clearest I could have been. I didn't point blank say, this is a frustration I have with you, or can we work on this a different way? This is what we need. This is the problem. And I think we're missing the solution. What do you think about that? Instead, they're very ambiguous about how clear they were. And so at the root of a lot of this, I think it goes back to, if you don't have a place with your team and on one-on-ones or others to check in with them, to also be really clear with what you see, what you need more of, what you need less of, what you want your team to do more of or keep doing the same, then it is on you, and you will create a culture where blaming is the only solution, or complaining, because there's a vacuum.
Wow. That's very true. And we could probably do a whole podcast on intentional places and spaces and creating that. And we might have already done that multiple times, but that's so powerful. So yeah, if you feel like there isn't a space to do that, create some of the space. It's such a good piece of advice. Is there anything else we should touch on with complaints? With complaints? I have no complaints about this podcast.
Oh, I was about to say, I have a long list of complaints about other people who aren't here, and I think we could really get into some in-depth solutions. But I don't want that. I would rather just talk about how much and how crazy those people are, right? That's really what we're here to do at People Centric. That's our hidden motto. We're here to complain with you. So if you need that,
give us your tea.
You give us a call. Yeah. Tea parties.
I personally love the gossip. I love being a petty Betty with you. So call me. Beat
me if you want to reach me. People Centric. Tell us.
But speaking of, if you want to reach us, we do love it when you reach out to us and give us insights and questions and help us talk through issues you're having. We love doing that. Please contact us. How to get a hold of us is at the outro of this. But we love spending time with you. We love going over the things that are actually happening in your workplace, in your life. And we love helping all of you. So if you have any feedback for us, please send it our way. Complaints are welcomed here. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.